It started with a cup of tea. The alien scout team had never seen a war criminal brew anything before, let alone on a battlefield still smoldering from orbital fire. She sat cross-legged in the dust, steeping leaves in a chipped metal tin, humming something that didn't translate. Sergeant Dahlia Morrow, human, polite, smiling. A little soot on her cheek, blood on her sleeve, hers or someone else's, hard to say. She looked up at the armored figures surrounding her, blinking as if surprised to see them. "Oh," she said brightly. "I didn't think anyone else would come this far out. Kettle's hot, if you're cold." The captain of the Imperial Seizure Team, Commander Bezianda, a tall, chitin-armored Osari, blinked both sets of eyelids. He motioned for his troops to surround her. Her weapon, a small sidearm, was 10 feet away, half buried in sand. "You are Sergeant Morrow of the Terran Outer Forces?" Bezianda asked, voice metallic through his translator. She tilted her head. "That depends. Are you offering a ride or making a fuss?" A brief silence stretched. Her accent, Midwestern, Earth Standard American, full of soft R's and casual cheer, threw the whole team off. They were expecting a feral brute or at least someone with facial scars and a personal vendetta. Not this tea-drinking librarian with a faint southern lilt. "You are under arrest," Bezianda said, regaining stiffness. "By the authority of the Galactic Empire, for violations of—" She held up a hand. "I'm sure I've violated a lot of things, Commander. You'll want to be specific or we'll be here all day. And I don't think your team packed snacks." He narrowed his eyes. She stood, slow and easy. No sudden movements. Just that persistent, unnerving calm. "Do you resist?" She smiled. "Only the urge to correct your grammar. But no. I'm a guest, aren't I?" The squad cuffed her gently, as if afraid she might bite if jostled. She thanked them for not scuffing her boots. Back aboard the Imperial cruiser Verdict of Dawn, Dee was processed through the lower decks, bypassing prisoner intake protocols due to species-related sensitivity. She was scanned, questioned, and escorted to a gray interrogation chamber lit with buzzing fluorescence. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and fear. The interrogation officer, a species known as Telverin, a tall, four-eyed being with skin like scorched bark, entered with measured steps. His nameplate read, Archivist General Sketh Veller. "Sergeant Morrow," he began, folding his long limbs into the seat across from her. "Your military record is thin. Logistics, mostly. Supply drops. Morale officer for a ground team. A paper pusher." "Somebody's got to keep the toilet paper stocked," she said pleasantly. "And yet," he continued, ignoring her, "your capture comes with orders not to interrogate you without high-clearance authorization." "Yet here you are," she replied, resting her chin on her hand. "Funny how bureaucracy always forgets its own memos." Sketh squinted at her. "Do you know why you were captured?" "Because I let you," she offered, all wide eyes and innocence. "No," he said slowly. "Because you were present at the destruction of Outpost Theta 7. Our reports show a single human vessel approached under diplomatic pretenses. 30 minutes later, the outpost lost all internal power and its garrison of 2,300 officers vanished. Not killed. Vanished." Dee's smile didn't waver. "Sounds like someone forgot to pay the light bill." Sketh stared. "You're making jokes?" "Well, they were alive when I left," she said, reaching for a non-existent cup. "And they weren't very good at cards." Behind the mirror, Commander Bezianda grunted in frustration. "She's mocking us. She's testing us," Sketh muttered. Outside the cell, the ship began to experience minor glitches. Lights flickered. Climate controls began playing smooth jazz in the shower sectors. One guard reported his translator had started speaking in Earth Spanish, which no one had input. A report filed to Central Command flagged these incidents as cultural contamination, Class 3, human mischief. In the brig, Dee leaned back in her chair and stretched. "Is it nap time soon? Or will I be insulted a little more before dinner?" Sketh closed his datapad. "You're not afraid." She met his gaze. You ever tried being the smallest creature in a room full of predators? Eventually, you learn that fear's a waste of space. He tilted his head. You think yourself small? I am small, she said gently. But that just means I fit into places you won't look. Sketh paused. Something about her phrasing lodged itself in his mind. Before he could respond, the room lights flickered again. Must be your wiring, she said, nodding up. You should really get that looked at. Elsewhere on the ship, two junior engineers were arguing about a console that now played Earthfolk music every time someone tried to access the brig surveillance feed. I swear I'm not doing this, one hissed. It's coming from the environmental subroutine. Environmental subroutine doesn't know Take Me Home, Country Roads, Karg. It does now. In the cell, Dee was moved to a standard holding pod. The guards were ordered not to speak to her. She greeted them anyway. She asked one if he wanted to learn how to make peanut butter. Butter? The guard asked, confused. Oh honey, it's what peace tastes like. They didn't know what to make of her. They tried silence. She filled it with conversation. They tried noise. She hummed over it. They tried threats. She raised an eyebrow and offered them tea. Commander Bezianda called for deeper scans. Background checks. DNA profiling. Military records. She was low clearance, yes, but there were redactions. Too many. He scowled as the reports came in. Too clean. Nobody in logistics is this boring. She has no family listed, Sketh added. No base of origin. Even Earth doesn't claim her. It's like she was made for the file. Which means she was made for us, Bezianda said grimly. Sketh frowned. You think this is a plant? I think, the commander said slowly, that we didn't capture her. She delivered herself. The realization sent a chill through the bridge. No alarms had been raised when she was brought aboard. No retaliation from the Terran fleet. Not even a whisper. Too quiet. In the holding pod, Dee sat cross-legged again, this time drawing with a bit of metal shard on the wall. One of the guards squinted at her design. Is that a bunny? No, she said. It's a pressure regulator. You've got 3 stacked too close. When one fails, the others will blow in sequence. The guard blinked. How do you know that? She smiled. Because you're listening. He stepped back. The other guards stopped trying to talk to her after that. Sketh returned with fresh documents. We found mention of you in a debrief from the Battle of Nemea Drift. You were listed as non-combatant support. But the commander noted that your evacuation protocols saved an entire wing. Well, she said, I do have a soft spot for rules. Especially when I write them. And a destroyed flagship 2 years later, also near you. Commander described a polite human who smiled before the engines failed. Politeness is free, she said. He leaned forward. What are you? She smiled again. Your guest. That night, Bezianda woke in a cold sweat. He called Sketh. She's not a sergeant. No, Sketh agreed. She's something else. Something worse, Bezianda said. They ordered a Level 5 data sweep, codenamed Project Mirror, to find known human anomalies matching her behavior pattern. The AI came back with one result. Dahlia Morrow, Strategic Class, Black Tier, Human Designation, Ghost Operative, Clearance, Above Top Secret, Operational Note, Never engage alone, never detain, never assume submission. Bezianda stood frozen. How did she get here? The ship's comms buzzed to life, on every channel. Dee's voice, calm and clear, echoed through the bridge. T's ready. The bridge lit up with alarms. Systems began failing sector by sector. The ship's core AI looped her humming. Every screen showed her smiling face, sipping tea. She's hijacked the system. Sketh shouted. No, Bezianda whispered. We brought the system to her. In her cell, Dee stood and brushed off her uniform. The cuffs clicked open, remotely. She stepped into the hallway as doors opened, one by one. She passed stunned guards, weapons raised but trembling. She didn't even glance at them. She walked like a ghost through the belly of the ship, graceful and sure. Her smile remained. Not triumphant, not cruel, just certain. In the engineering bay, a lone maintenance worker, Terran, hidden for weeks, saluted her. She nodded once. "Begin Phase 2, she said softly. A message flashed through the Imperial network. One line. "One of ours has been captured." The second line, encrypted, read, "Proceed with operation, Barn Cat." Back in the brig, the only thing left in her cell was the faint scent of tea leaves, and a bunny sketch that turned out to be an exact layout of the ship's weak points, hidden in doodles. In the final moments of the section, Bezianda faced the screen showing Dee walking calmly into the control hub. "What does Barn Cat mean?" he asked Sketh. Sketh swallowed. "It's a Terran idiom. It means she was never lost. And we were the mice." The smell of burnt circuits crept slowly through the corridors of the Verdict of Dawn. Engineers scrambled to isolate the malfunctions, shouting over the rising hiss of internal static. The gravity fluctuated again, briefly flipping upside down before snapping back, leaving one unlucky crew member suspended by his boots in the mess hall's soup vat. The Telveran investigator Sketh Veller stared at the data scroll unrolling in his trembling fingers. Every diagnostic sweep returned the same result. No foreign signals, no viruses, no sabotage. The ship's systems were simply obeying something else. Something internal. Something they had let aboard. "I don't understand," one of the younger analysts whispered beside him. "It's not hacking. It's like the ship's obeying a new priority." Sketh closed the scroll, his lips tight. "No, it's not obeying." He turned and looked at the paused security feed, D. Morrow, smiling faintly at a passing guard, sketching another diagram with a scrap of metal. "It's listening." Elsewhere, Commander Bezianda paced the bridge, his chitinous armor rattling with each measured step. Reports flowed in, climate controls rerouted to make all officer chambers precisely 73 degrees Fahrenheit, exactly room temperature for humans. Cafeteria systems had reprinted Terran meals, down to the packaging. Who authorized rations for peanut butter and jelly? Bezianda bellowed. A junior logistics tech cowered and stammered, I think it printed itself, sir." Food does not print itself. Except now it did. The ship's AI was responding to protocols it shouldn't have access to, civilian comfort settings tailored to humans, which were buried in outdated Alliance subroutines. The fact that Verdict of Dawn could even read those meant someone had bridged software sealed off for centuries. The commander's fist slammed the console. "Bring her to me. Now." Guards hesitated. Not one wanted to fetch the polite Terran. Down in the brig, Dahlia Morrow finished rearranging her cot. She had folded the thin military blanket into a swan, then a turtle, and now a decent approximation of a Pomeranian. A few guards watched from behind the barrier, whispering. She'd asked one of them if they liked riddles. "Try this," she had said earlier, passing him a folded napkin. "What can be broken, used, and held without hands?" The guard unfolded it. The answer was written on the back. A plan. Now, as the door opened, she stood without resistance, brushing off non-existent lint. "Going somewhere?" she asked. The escort officer swallowed hard. "The commander wants to speak with you." She raised an eyebrow. "Ooh, sounds serious." On the way up, she hummed again. That same tune. Slow, drifting, earthfolk cadence. The lift shuddered, pausing between decks, then resuming. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. "I've heard," she said casually, "that when humans whistle, it's a sign we're calm. Or bored. Or dangerous." They said nothing. You really should learn the difference. When she arrived on the bridge, the atmosphere changed instantly. Every officer tensed. Bezianda stood near the command dais, his mandibles flexing slightly. "Sergeant Morrow." "Commander." She nodded politely. Thank you for the invitation. Cease this charade, he barked. Whatever tricks you've encoded into our systems, reverse them. Now. She blinked. I've encoded nothing. I wouldn't even know how to. A nearby technician yelped. His console began spitting Terran poetry through the navigation feed. A Shakespearean sonnet, to be precise. You see, Bezianda shouted. This is not coincidence. This is control. She tilted her head, thoughtful. Commander, with respect, have you considered the possibility that your ship simply prefers me? The room fell silent. I mean, we've been chatting, she continued, gesturing to the walls. Nice voice on your core AI, by the way. Bit rigid, but open-minded. We discussed ethics over lunch. You're lying. I'm charming, she corrected, smiling. Sketh entered then, breathless. Commander, he said quickly, I need to show you something. Bezianda growled. Now. Yes, now. The two stepped away from D, who continued examining the bridge's lighting fixtures as though deciding where to hang drapes. Sketh pulled up a display on a secured holopad. It showed a copy of the ship's schematic, overlaid with human-coded symbols. She's mapped the entire structure. She's marked ventilation, power conduits, and pressure chambers. This was done by hand. From memory. Impossible, Bezianda hissed. She drew it on her cell wall. Perfect accuracy. Bezianda stared. So she's a spy? No, Sketh said. Worse. She's an educator. Back on the bridge, Dee leaned closer to a console and muttered, You're doing very well, sweetie. Just one more override and we'll be cozy again. The console chirped. The main screen flickered. The verdict of Dawn's map shifted, now displaying escape pods, signal boosters, weapons lockers, all outlined in Terran red. She's breached firewalls without touching a terminal, the helmsman whispered. This isn't an intrusion. She is the intrusion, Sketh said. Commander Bezianda rounded on her. What is your objective? To observe, she replied. And to be observed. The commander shook with restrained fury. This is war. No, she said. This is theater. You just don't know which role you're playing. Silence settled again. Something deep and cold crept into the bridge's air. Sketh broke it first. Your people have already boarded, haven't they? Dee didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her jacket pocket, very slowly, and pulled out a small piece of candy. A butterscotch. She offered it to Sketh. He stared at it as though it might explode. You're not scared, he said. She looked at him evenly. I'm counting. Then she placed the candy on the console, gently, and walked back toward the lift. Where are you going? Bezianda barked. Nap time, she said. I find rebellions easier when well rested. He motioned to the guards. Detain her. Secure her in lockdown 2. No windows. No AI access. As she was led away again, she called over her shoulder. Careful, Commander. The more you tighten your grip, the more sand slips through. Bezianda turned to Sketh. Tell me she's bluffing. I think, Sketh said slowly, she's narrating. Elsewhere in the ship, trouble rippled outward. In the lower decks, pipes began vibrating with strange rhythms. An Osari guard patrolling maintenance sectors turned a corner and spotted a janitor. Terran. Human. The janitor looked up, smiled, and swept. Hey there, he said. Who are you? The Osari demanded. Joe, the man replied. Joe what? Just Joe. He walked away, whistling the same Earth tune. By the time the Osari called it in, Joe was gone. A systems alert hit the bridge 5 minutes later. Internal power rerouting, magnetic locks failing in pattern. And yet no known override commands had been issued. Back in her new cell, Dee lounged calmly, legs crossed, eyes closed. A soft smile curved her lips. Outside her room, Sketh stood alone. He pressed his palm to the barrier. Why all this? Because, she said without opening her eyes, you all needed a story, and we're very good at telling them. He frowned. You're using stories to wage war? No, she replied, eyes opening now. We're using yours. She stood and walked toward him. Your empire is held together by myth, strength, order, precision. But all empires eventually forget the other kind of story. The messy one, the one with laughing villains and weeping heroes and strange food preferences. You forgot the story where the smallest creature writes the ending. You think humans are that creature? I know we are. Another tremor ran through the ship. Sketh looked down. What happens next? She smiled again. That depends on who you let finish the sentence. The alarms began. Real this time. Full red. Not drills. Main engine failure. Auto NAV disengaged. Docking systems unresponsive. Outer comms transmitting unknown signal. Bridge officers screamed over each other. Bezianda lunged for the command chair. Seal all sectors. Cut her off from the mainframe. She's not in the mainframe, someone screamed back. She is the mainframe. The ship shuddered. In the depths of space beyond, several Terran ships powered down their cloaking. Not battleships. Cargo freighters, mostly. Old, clunky, patched-together junkers. Each one drifted silently, insignificantly, until they lit up. Dozens of signals burst across the fleet's communications array, none using Empire protocol. The symbols matched Earth alphabet. One line blinked, translated. Release her. Bezianda laughed. Short, bitter. That's it? Idle threats and junk freighters. Sketh looked at the incoming data streams. They're not junk. What are they, then? Cameras. The realization hit like a solar flare. They weren't here to attack. They were here to watch. The entire spectacle, the capture, the interrogation, the sabotage, it had all been engineered to be witnessed. Broadcast. Documented. For whom? Bezianda didn't yet know. Shut it down, he roared. Cut the signal. But every console now glowed with the same message. The story ends when we say it does. The bridge crew turned to him, pale or chittering or silent, depending on their species. The mask of control was cracking. And deep in her cell, Dee stood at last, dusted herself off, and smiled at the red lights now flooding her room. Showtime, she said. The Empire's miscalculation wasn't letting her in. It was thinking they ever had a choice. They called her polite, charming, clever in the way humans often were, like raccoons with vocabulary. They didn't see it until it was far too late. On the lower deck of the Verdict of Dawn, someone had sealed Engineering Bay 3. Not with brute force or weapons, but with security codes no one had entered. The system denied override. The crew tried slicing through the panel, only to find the alloy repolarized itself every 10 seconds. Inside the sealed bay, the lights shifted to soft amber, the color temperature of Terran daylight. And one human stood there, in janitor's coveralls, humming the national anthem of a country that no longer existed. The melody looped endlessly through the speaker system, now fully under foreign control. Commander Bezianda had ceased barking orders. There was no point anymore. The ship was listening to someone else. He stood over the central tactical console, claws braced, mandibles tight. She's alone, he muttered. One woman. Unarmed. Sketh Veller stood beside him, data pad limp in his grasp. She's not alone, Sketh said. She's human. Across the Empire, that word had carried dozens of meanings, mostly dismissive. Primitive. Industrious. Occasionally inventive. Loud. Unpredictable. A species that smiled too much and meant it too little. But now, Sketh's eyes held something else, a flicker of awe. They don't send armies, he murmured. They send invitations. And we said yes. A chirp interrupted. Bezianda turned sharply. The console, long since hijacked, displayed a new message. Incoming transmission. Civilian format. Terran signature verified. He opened it. Dee's face appeared on every screen across the bridge. Not a video, live feed. She sat in her cell, legs crossed, sipping something from a metal cup. "Hello again," she said warmly. No makeup, no uniform. Just a plain gray undershirt and patience in her eyes. "I understand things are getting complicated." No one answered. "I'd like to offer clarification," she continued, sipping. "You see, this wasn't an accident. Or a lucky coincidence. I came here for a reason." "Sabotage," Bezianda spat. She shook her head gently. "No, Commander. Sabotage is what you do when you're trying to delay someone. I'm here to accelerate." "To what?" Sketh asked. Dee smiled. "A conversation." "Explain," Bezianda growled. "Not yet. We're still waiting on the others." At that moment, 3 minor cruisers docked across different sectors of the Verdict of Dawn. They had sent no hails. Their transponders identified them as cargo-class vessels, harmless, slow, old. From each, small crews disembarked. Unarmed. No insignias. All Terran. All waiting. The Empire's security systems didn't stop them. Couldn't. Not anymore. Because the ship no longer answered to the Empire. It answered to curiosity. "What do they want?" Bezianda whispered. Sketh didn't respond. His hands were shaking. He pulled up Dee's personnel file again, scrolling past the redactions. There it was. Dahlia Morrow, Strategic Operations Ghost. Psychological Profile. Disposition. Amiable. Risk Level. Terminal. Do not detain. The last line read, "Do not mistake kindness for containment." Sketh looked at her on the screen. She was staring directly at the camera now. "We learned early on," she said softly, "that apex predators don't always snarl. Sometimes they ask how your day's been." The bridge went silent. "And it worked for us," she continued. "Until it didn't. Until we realized that every smile we gave to your kind was logged, filed, and dismissed as primitive diplomacy." "Because it was," Bezianda snapped. "This is manipulation." She chuckled. "Commander, if you think the only way to manipulate someone is by yelling, you've already lost." Across the ship, various terminals started listing names. Planetary names. Coordinates. Times. Casualty numbers. Every Empire war crime. Not the public ones. The hidden ones. "Where did you get these?" Sketh whispered. "I didn't," Dee said. "Your own systems did. I just asked nicely." Bezianda's fists curled into the metal. "You invaded our flagship to dig up old files?" "History matters," she replied. "So does memory. We humans, well, we're good at pretending we've moved on. But we never forget." The consoles blinked. Operation Barncat. Phase 2 engaged. Sketh backed away. "It's happening now, isn't it?" She nodded. "I'm not here to fight, Archivist. I'm here to expose." The cameras cut suddenly to the Empire's Central Hall, streaming live from the capital. Somehow, the Verdict of Dawn was now broadcasting to every major node across the Empire's infrastructure. On every screen, across the stars, citizens now saw her face. Dee Morrow, a quiet Terran, framed not as a prisoner, but as a teacher. Her voice filled the feed. "You called us unpredictable, untrustworthy. You said humans couldn't build an empire because we don't follow rules. You're right." She stood, slowly, in her cell. "We don't build empires." Her voice dropped. "We outlive them." Outside the cruiser, the quiet Terran ships began broadcasting too. Their signals were relays, network amplifiers for the transmission. Simple tech. Obsolete. Impossible to detect as weapons. But they didn't need to destroy. Just inform. Because information spreads faster than war. Sketh collapsed into a chair. "You didn't plan to escape," he whispered. "You planned to be seen." Dee's eyes met his, even through the screen. "We learned from you, Archivist. You rule with fear. But fear fades. Shame doesn't." Bezianda roared and lunged for the override. It didn't work. Dee's face remained. She glanced down at something we couldn't see. Right on time. Behind her, a side wall hissed open. Not forced. Not hacked. It simply obeyed. She stepped through calmly. Guards arrived moments later. Too late. The hallway behind the wall led nowhere listed on the ship's map. A blind spot. Intentional. "She's gone," someone said. Bezianda turned. "Find her." "She's inside the ship," Sketh whispered. "Deeper than we can follow." A flicker on a nearby screen. She reappeared on a maintenance deck camera. Then again, 2 levels up. Then again, outside the command room. She was walking slowly, like someone waiting for the next act. Sketh watched her pass the lens. She turned, just slightly, and smiled again. That smile, it wasn't cruel. It wasn't triumphant. It was a warning. "She's not here to destroy us," Sketh said. "She's here to witness it." In the heart of the ship, she entered a room that hadn't existed 30 minutes ago. A room the ship made for her. The AI had recompiled a command center. Basic interface. Human language. Tea dispenser. She sat. Back on the bridge, Bezianda's voice cracked. "What do you want from us?" Her reply came not as words but a poem. The ship's speakers whispered it. English. Translated. Measured in lines. "The lion does not roar for sport, nor strike without a cause. But once you've tugged its tail enough, you'll find you broke its laws." The lights dimmed. Sketh stood, staring at the endless feed of Empire secrets now spilling into public forums. Whole colonies going dark. Not from fire. From shame. From confusion. From the dawning realization that the stories they'd been told were lies. "Tell me this isn't war," Bezianda begged. Dee's voice came one last time. "No, Commander. This is history, remembering itself." And then the feeds cut out. Silence. The ship powered down to minimal life support. In the command center, Dee leaned back, sipping her tea. Somewhere in the distance, an Osari technician whispered, "She never fired a shot." "No," said Sketh. "But she killed something anyway." "What?" He looked toward the darkened screens. Certainty. The air aboard the Verdict of Dawn was still. Not silent. There was always the hum of engines, the murmur of backup systems, the rustle of breath and armor, but still. Like a courtroom seconds before the verdict. The ship floated in orbit over an unnamed moon, powered down to critical systems. The lights dimmed to emergency glow. The Empire's flagship had become a haunted cathedral. Commander Bezianda stood alone on the bridge. His armor hung loose around him, suddenly heavier than it had ever been. The weight was not physical. It was the weight of knowing. Below, hundreds of crew members waited without instruction. No orders came. No counterattack launched. Even the chain of command, so precisely engineered, had cracked. No one dared speak. Not because of Dahlia Moro's presence, but because of her absence. Because she had vanished, and the ship had allowed it. He reviewed the footage again. Her disappearing into the unlisted corridor. The doors closing behind her like the pages of a book slamming shut. That corridor had not existed until this week. It had not been part of the original design. Sketh Veller entered, pale and slow, a cup of water in his trembling hands. He sat without asking. "She moved the ship," he said softly. Bezianda didn't answer. "She moved the soul of the thing. The heart." She turned the walls into witnesses and the cameras into storytellers. The commander finally spoke. "I don't know how to fight something like that." Sketh drank and let the silence hold for a moment longer. "She didn't want you to." The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss. A figure stepped in, dressed in standard human clothing, hands empty, demeanor calm. Dahlia Morrow. Still smiling. Not cruelly. Not with triumph. Simply as if she were home. No guards blocked her. No weapons fired. Everyone had seen what she was, even if they didn't understand how she became it. "Would you like to sit, Commander?" she asked gently. Bezianda didn't move. She took the seat next to him and folded her hands in her lap. She looked smaller than he remembered. "We weren't always like this," she began. "We weren't always calculated, or patient, or even dangerous. But time teaches strange lessons." He stared at her. "Are you going to kill me?" She gave him a long look. "No," she said. "You're going to survive. That's the punishment." He blinked. "You will live to explain this. To stand before your courts, your ministers, your colonies, and tell them how the great verdict of dawn fell to a human who never raised her voice. That's not a punishment." Her smile deepened. "Commander, in your world, silence is weakness. Shame is unbearable. And you just broadcast your entire crime library to a galaxy of allies and rivals. You didn't lose a ship. You lost control." She stood again and walked toward the command panel. It blinked alive for her. She touched nothing. The lights grew warmer. "I like this lighting better," she mused. "Less like an execution chamber. More like a kitchen." Bezianda rose with effort. "You came here just to humiliate us?" "No. I came here to remind you." She turned to him, her voice soft but unyielding. "You thought humanity was broken, ungoverned. You mistook our chaos for weakness. But you didn't understand the truth." She stepped closer. "Our chaos is our design. We're built to adapt, to fracture, to grieve, to rebuild." He looked away. "You're parasites," he muttered. "We're survivors," she corrected. From the console, images flickered. Earth cities rebuilding after bombardment. Human children in bunkers drawing chalk murals on walls. An old woman planting tomatoes next to a crater. A soldier holding a child in one arm and a rifle in the other, eyes hollow but hands gentle. "These are not threats," she said. "They're warnings. Because what you don't see in these images is what comes next." He turned to face her again, finally. "And what does come next?" She tilted her head. "Choices." At that moment, her voice echoed through every deck. Not through speakers, through the walls themselves. "Empire crew of Verdict of Dawn, this is Sergeant Dahlia Morrow, Strategic Operations, Human Coalition. Your vessel is no longer under hostile status. No weapons have been fired. No lives have been taken. You are free to disembark at your nearest civilian port." The crew paused, stunned. She continued. "You may return home. You may stay. Or you may ask to speak. We're very good at listening. But your days of ruling with silence are over. From this moment forward, you are heard. Whether you wish to be or not." The screens blinked once more. The Empire's crest faded. The Coalition symbol, a woven circle of stars and earth, appeared in its place. No anthem played. Just a quiet note. A bell. The bridge was quiet again. Then someone, Sketh, began to cry. Not loud. Just the silent, exhausted grief of someone who'd been holding their breath for years. Dee let it pass. She sat again and poured tea from a thermos she'd taken from her jacket. Bezianda stared. "Is that from the beginning?" "The tea." She nodded. "Same batch. Brought it all this way." He stared down at it. "You destroyed everything. With tea." "No," she said, handing him a cup. "I rebuilt something. You just had to lose a few things first." He took it. Tentatively. The scent was unfamiliar. Earthy. Warm. She raised her own. To the end of one story. They drank. Moments later, across the galaxy, others did too. On a mining world where conscripts were watching in secret, a mechanic whispered, "They did it. A human one." On a diplomatic station long gagged by the Empire, alien clerks reactivated communications. On Earth, in a small quiet room buried beneath a war monument, a light turned green. A man leaned forward. Signal confirmed. Operation complete. And somewhere else, in a quiet part of the universe, other ships, small, harmless-looking ones, lit up. Not to fight. To film. Dee stood, placed her cup down, and looked once more at Bezianda. "You'll make it out of this," she said. "And if I don't, then someone else will. That's the real horror of dealing with us. We never come alone." He met her gaze. For the first time without hate. "I didn't understand your people." "You weren't supposed to," she said. "You were supposed to underestimate us." She started walking, the ship guiding her path. "Where are you going now?" Sketh asked. She paused at the threshold. Turned. To start another story. She disappeared into the corridor, her footsteps swallowed by the walls that now bent gently around her. The ship pulsed once, as if breathing, and then she was gone. Later, long after the verdict of Dawn was reclaimed and reclassified, long after its crew gave testimony to the High Galactic Council, long after Empire systems failed and revolutions bloomed like strange flowers, there would be a recording. A simple, unremarkable video of a human woman sipping tea in a prison cell, smiling and humming an old song. They would study it, translate the lyrics, analyze the posture, the tone, the casual confidence. And still they would not fully understand what made her dangerous. Because it wasn't her words. It was the fact that she had never needed to raise her voice. Empires burned. Tea first.